So you're in a negotiation with another buyer and you've both offered the same price. Well, what are the critical things that is going to push it over the line to make it work in your favor? Well, keep watching because I'm about to reveal a couple of the negotiation tactics you need to employ. Hi everybody, my name's Josh Masters. The other day I was out in the marketplace representing a client to buy a property, and we actually had a counter offer from another buyer that came in at a very similar price. Now my client comes to me and says, Josh, how do we differentiate our offer from theirs? And I always say to them, look, it's about price or it's about terms. And what I mean by terms are the things that we can negotiate on outside of the actual price itself. Now, to sweeten deals in a way, there are a few things that you could offer up. First of them, one of them is the settlement period. Now, that indicates how long it takes to settle between the time you exchange and the time you actually move into it or take ownership. Now, you can extend that settlement, which can be really good for the vendor if they haven't found a property or they need some time to arrange things. Alternatively, you can also shorten that settlement period because they may have found something already and now they need to exchange super quick to get the money and make sure that they can pay for the next property that they've bought. The other thing that you can negotiate on is the finance clause. Now, if you're in a conditional contract and you have pre-approval from the bank, it's often good to be able to waive the finance clause. That gives the vendor some ounce of confidence that they don't have to go through the whole financing process with you just to ensure that you can get the deal if they accept your offer. And the third and final thing is a contentious one, but it's around the release of the deposit. Now, when you put a deposit down when you're making an offer, generally it sits in the real estate agent's trust account. Most people will say that you can't release the deposit, but in actual fact, this can be a really key negotiating strategy. Because if you allow the vendor to get the deposit or have the deposit released to the vendor, then they can potentially use that deposit for a property that they're looking at as a deposit themselves. Now, you can also put a caveat on the property to make sure that you have some legal ramifications if that deposit, something happens to it or the sales fall through. Now, it is something that you need to check with your solicitor and make sure that you're comfortable with, but it can be a really strong negotiating tactic when you're looking at that. Now, in the example that I made to you earlier in the piece where the other buyer had offered a similar price, we actually extended our settlement to make sure that the vendor had plenty of time to find a property that they wanted themselves. And that was what pushed it across the line for us. So if you have any questions around this or you'd like to know more, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. You've been watching me, Josh Masters, on The Ladder.